Welcome to Basement Tales with Sam Jacknin, Charlie Einsmann, Ed Grass, and Sandra Delancy. We have fun telling crazy but true stories about turning the worst possible property disasters into bags of money. Along the way, we'll pass along some important lessons to help you make cash on real estate. Sam and Charlie walked away from cubicle hell 25 years ago. Starting with no property, they created their own Clear Sky group of companies, sold hundreds of houses, bought dozens of rentals, and made millions in hard money loans. I'm Ed, a big firm litigator until muscular dystrophy made me find a hobby other than suing people. I miss it. Sandra's the normal person here with a real job plus some rentals. Her decades of friendship with the group, from office flunkies to property gurus, might help keep us all humble and focused on learning something. I wouldn't count on it.
All right, so let me get some engagement. Does anyone have a tale for this week?
Yeah, I do. I've got a whole agenda for this.
You got an agenda?
Oh,
Can I interrupt your agenda? Can I start with Can I interrupt your agenda?
I have a tale and an agenda and everything.
All right, this is just a hint for next week's tale. Then I'm just going to share this. This is the after. Remember that place?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And do you remember what home this was? This was the before.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so for our radio listeners, the before looks like a trashed Addams Family house, and the after looks like a nice house with cherry cabinets, which are, not as much in style, but very saleable.
And it's a little grim around the holidays to bring this up because it does involve death.
Well, on that cheery note,
Right. I'm like, what? What happened? Who died?
I think I'm going to vote for Charlie's agenda.
All right. Let's start off with a really good story and a public service announcement. And so whoever's listening to this, Charlie Grass or Aurora, the title of this podcast is going to be "To Key or Not to Key," and so this will fill in my story here that I'm about ready to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you guys to understand, I'm actually quoting Shakespeare, Hamlet, to be or not to be, but in this case, to key or not to key. And so my story revolves around these bank-owned keys that we have. And so Sam knows about the bank-owned keys, and that when we were REO agents back in the day selling houses on behalf of the banks would go ahead and hire a property preservation company for each of their houses to do the rekeys. The problem is with the rekeys, if this, for example, was a Bank of America or a Freddie Mac or a Fannie Mae or an Indy Mac, they would key every single one of their houses to the exact same key. So right here, as you guys can hear that? So I've got a whole set of bank-owned keys. So I've got the 42 key, the 41 key, the 67 key, and the 23 key, and I got a whole bunch of them, okay? Bank-owned keys. Now, what that enables us to do is all depend upon who the property preservation company was or is. They key all the houses to the same key. So if you have purchased your house from a bank, or if you've purchased your house as a short sale that was vacant before the bank took it over and a property preservation company took it over, or if you purchased your house within the last 12 years at an auction at a courthouse steps and the property was vacant, odds are I've got the key to your house. So here's your public service announcement. If and when you buy a house, rekey every single lock, and I mean every single lock. So that's your PSA of the day, and that will lead me into my story.
Doesn't matter if it's foreclosure. You got to rekey whether it's foreclosed house or not.
That's right.
In the world of information security, you should also change your default passwords.
That's right.
Another public service announcement.
That's
yeah,
right.
apparently
So-
the government should have done that.
So if you guys don't get anything else out of this podcast, when you rekey every single lock, because if you don't, I guarantee you 10% of listeners, I have your key. I have the key to your house.
And Charlie will show up just to prove his point.
I'll show up just like I did a couple weeks ago. And this leads me into my funny story.
It's just a matter of time.
That's right. And so we're bidding on houses at the courthouse steps. And so am I allowed to say an address or no?
Well, just keep it to, I don't
All
know,
right,
keep
I'll
it to
keep it
like a
simple.
street or an area.
So what's going on in the foreclosure world, in the world of forbearances, is that not too many houses are coming to the courthouse steps because of the forbearance agreements, especially if it's a government-owned loan. Well, this particular house that was in, we'll just say Lake Ridge, Virginia, which it was, happened to have been an FHA house. In other words, the owner had an FHA loan on it. And so this house was coming to an auction. And the reason why I know this, and this we'll get into later in the podcast, we'll go over 6 tips for bidding at courthouse auctions. But this particular house, the reason why I knew it was an FHA house was because the FHA put a 1-year right of redemption on that house. So if you bought it at the courthouse steps, the FHA could redeem within a year. All right. So what that said told me is that when I go to check the house is probably going to be vacant. Okay. So of course I go and check the house before the auction. Well, and of course the house was vacant. How do I know that? Well, there is either a white sticker at the front door, which says it was taken care of by a property service company, or there's going to be a blue sticker, or the power meter is going to be out. Well, in this case, there was a blue sticker, which showed that a property maintenance company or property service company had been there to rekey it because there was a combo lockbox. Well, I just took out one of my handy dandy key sets and I got into the house, right? Remember, this is before the foreclosure auction, so I'm about ready to go to the foreclosure auction, about to stop and do an check, and it was vacant. However, the house was loaded. It was a 2-level single family house, and the house was loaded.
Wait, Charlie,
Well,
what does loaded mean?
oh, loaded means there's furniture in the house, there's food in the cabinets, there's food in the refrigerator, there's, like I said, there's furniture, and there's collectibles in this particular house.
Wow. Wow.
So
Okay.
I look at the lower level and I go upstairs, and mind you, I'm a little spooked because, I'm not sure why the house is loaded. I know it's vacant, but I don't know why it's loaded. So I'm already on edge, a little spooked because, you didn't hear this from me, but I'm probably trespassing, right? Because somebody else owns this house.
Yeah, I was going to
Um,
mention that. I don't know if this entire story is allowed, but
yeah, I don't know.
maybe you were seeing all this from the window. Well, I can't, as an attorney, I
But
can't tell you to say something that's
I understand.
untrue.
I understand. But, as I always create the problems and you get us out of the
Yeah,
problem. We all
and
understand.
then I have to fix it. Yeah, I get it.
So I'm looking around the house. It had a couple leaks. And then I go upstairs, and it's a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath, 1 half bath, 2 levels. So I kind of already know the layout of the house before I get in there. So I go upstairs and I look into the first bedroom. And what do I see but a 6-foot mannequin woman staring at me? And so needless to say, that scared the shit out of me. I went down the stairs, I left the house, I locked the house, and I went to the auction. Okay. Now, once I got to the auction, we kind of knew, okay, the house is vacant. I already had my numbers on this particular house. And so in this case, because it was an FHA 1-year right of redemption, I knew that even if we bought this house, we would probably have to rent it out for a year to give the Department of HUD a year to redeem it. Now, FHA has a 1-year right of redemption on some houses. It was published in the ad. That's how we found out. And then the IRS, if there's an IRS lien, it has a 120-day right of redemption. So in this case, once I saw that 1-year right of redemption, I was like, okay, we're just going to turn this house into a rental. Well, the rental renovation was pretty straightforward. I mean, I already had a functioning kitchen. The power wasn't on, but everything was functioning. So we could have basically unloaded the house. We might have had to sell the contents because there were a lot of collectibles in the house, or done a personal property eviction. But there were a lot of collectibles. So I just went to the courthouse thinking that we were just going to go ahead and keep it as a rental for a year and then maybe flip it or keep it in our portfolio. So the numbers were such that the house was worth about $375. The rental would have been like $2,500. So looking at 73 cents on the dollar, our bid would have been $273. And so the plan was to keep it as a rental. Well, of course, I get to the courthouse steps and there's, probably 7 or 8 bidders who, of course, had no idea that there was a 1-year right of redemption from the FHA. They thought it was just a straight foreclosure. and they bid this house up to about $320,000. Now, the rental renovation would have been about, I don't know, maybe $10,000 or less, but the fix and flip renovation would have ran about $40,000. So again, these guys made a very marginal buy, but they have no idea that the FHA has a 1-year right of redemption. So remember, I got into, well, as Ed says, I didn't really get into the house, but I did use one of my special keys to get in the house. And so I'm not the only one that does this. Some of my competition does have these keys to these houses. So if the house is vacant and it has been preserved by a property preservation company, which includes rekeying it, I would guess to say 9 times out of 10, I have the key. And we also have the FHA key rings as well. So there you go.
So what did you do when you saw the mannequin?
Yeah, that's what I want to know is did
Oh, come
you
on.
buy the
Give us a
mannequin?
moment to moment.
Is it in your house though now is what I
Did
want
you
to know.
scream?
Oh, no, it's not in my house, man. That scared the shit out of me. I didn't even bother to go look at the rest of the bathrooms and bedrooms.
Did you
I
scream?
saw that mannequin looking right at me. I jumped. I
Did you
said, hell with this,
scream?
man.
No,
I jumped. I jumped. I said, man, I'm getting out of this house. I'm not
sure
spending
there
any
was a
more time.
lady scream there too.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, it was a lady scream. And I ran right out of that house because I'm like, oh boy, this is bad juju. First of all, the house is loaded. No one's living there. And it's been like this for at least 6 months. And so the only thing I don't understand is I guess when the property preservation company came to rekey it, obviously they didn't clean out the contents, but I think that's because the ownership hadn't physically changed hands yet. And so the house was purchased by a third party bidder at $320,000. And like I said, it needed like a $45,000 renovation budget. And the ARV might have been 375. I think I might have been high on the ARV number, but it's all good. We didn't end up getting it. So, oh well.
Did
so
you ever
well.
hear what happened with it? So the person who bought it?
No, I mean, this happened literally 2 weeks ago.
What
Oh
happens
wow.
when a place is loaded like that? I mean, what like
Yeah, what do you
somebody
do
just
with
they
it?
just yeah.
Well, the first step that you need to do is technically, well, close your ears, Ed. Guys like us,
Well, you
guys
gotta
like us.
explain it in a legal way, Charlie.
Okay, hold on. First of
Lawful.
all, let me tell you what we might do, and then I'll explain it to a legal way. What we might do if we buy it is we would go ahead and talk to the neighbors and find out if they know where the owners went to. And then if we could find out where the owners went to, we would go ahead and reach out to the owners and say, do you want any of the stuff in this house? And then maybe if it was a death, then we would reach out to one of the ancestors to see if they want any of the remains in the house, because we've done that many times.
That brings
Okay.
to the chicken house shooting. Remember that?
Yeah, we probably need to go into that story after this. So
Yeah.
then from a legal standpoint, Mr. Ed Grass, Mr. Lawyer of the group, what we would need to do is do what's called a personal property eviction. And so what that means is we actually have to file an eviction with the courthouse and do a personal property eviction. And if nobody answers the notice, then we'll just get possession that day. And then the house is technically ours. But since we have the key to the house, I mean, honestly, the house is kind of technically ours anyway, even though we have contract rights to it. We just don't have possession rights.
I think there's like a limit, like a $300 of material of things with a value of $300 or greater, some nominal amount like that. Then it requires a personal property eviction. So if you come into a house that is nothing but trash, you're not obligated to do a personal.
Which is pretty common for you guys. It's just
Nah.
trash.
Yeah.
Nah, even though we might have said, oh yeah, $300. That house had some pretty good collectibles. Somebody was collecting some antiques. You could tell an older lady, older lady had her porcelain knickknacks. There were some pretty valuable things in there. And so even though
But
we
where
might have
did the
said,
people go? Like, what happened? Did they just like disappear? The rapture happened, and they were just taken up to heaven.
Well, that one sounds like I Am Legend. He's got left the mannequins. Smith,
I don't know. And the funny thing is, if we would have won the bid at the auction, I would have had to have tracked down what happened to the owners and find them. But it was, like I said, it was loaded, and it wasn't $300. My guess, it was probably $20,000 to $30,000.
Wow.
Stuff in that house. I don't know. I have no idea. But again, some of our cases are like that. We actually have no idea where these people went.
We had that one.
They just rolled out.
We had the one where they didn't just roll out. We were at the Target, and across from the Target, there's a Chick-fil-A.
Oh boy.
All of a sudden, we heard some gunshots,
Bang, bang, bang.
And then there was a police and fire response, a lot of vehicles. We didn't think anything of it. We went about our business the rest of the day. And Charlie goes to the auction maybe 3 weeks later, month and a half, three
Yeah,
later.
it was 3 weeks later.
Time later. And this house comes up for auction. He buys the house. He goes back, and we get into the house, and it's got a lot of possessions in it. And he starts researching it. Come to find out, on the very day that we heard the gunshots, the lady of the house was killed by her estranged husband. He was in jail. Charlie got in touch with that guy's brother-in-law.
Family. I got in touch with the
Oh, it's
heirs
terrible.
because of the uncommon last name, because that house was loaded, and they had 3 kids.
Personal family stuff.
3 kids, right, Sam? 2 or 3 kids.
Yeah, all their family toys and pictures.
Right, and so the guy that did the shooting was in jail. Obviously, the mom wasn't living, and the kids were actually living with the sister of the mom or the brother of the mom. And this happened. Matter of fact, it's funny because this happened around Thanksgiving, a little bit after Thanksgiving, because we were actually at the MGM. I remember to this day when I received the phone call from it was actually the brother, when I received the brother and the sister who had the kids, and we were at the MGM because we were about ready to go see the display ice, if you guys know what ice was. And so when I got that phone call, that was another surreal moment. And I still remember where I was to this day, and the people telling me exactly what happened. And so they needed a good month and a half to not only come back and collect the possessions, especially the personal possessions of the kids, but just to then have an estate sale for the rest of the house. And so in that case, we didn't really need to do a personal property eviction. We just sort of did a nice friendly handoff. And so we ended up getting possession of the house, I think like end of January, beginning of February. But that man, Sam, I can't believe you brought that story up. That's a pretty tough one. But I do remember that
There's a lot of rough ones out there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've seen, there's been a lot of these where somebody's died without relatives and all sorts of things happen. And also, you mentioned, of course, the legal stuff. And I always talk about sort of the rule of reason, which is, and just good business practice. If you can find somebody and help them out and move their stuff for them or whatever, it's so much better than a fight or going through the court system. And I mean, that's an extreme example, but people have been stuck in some unfortunate situations. And if they can get their possessions back, at least it's something, that can ameliorate a pretty tough situation. Can you, if you're waiting to do a property eviction, can you move the stuff into storage, or you have to leave it there?
No, oh no, you can't touch it. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
you can't, keep your ears closed, Dad. I don't want to get you in trouble or anything, but
So what are we gonna? You said to key or not to key? Is this to go to jail or not to go to jail?
well, no,
Is that
to
what this
key or
episode-
not to key.
Yeah.
You had better, if you're buying a house, you had better rekey every single lock, because odds are I've got your key. But to get back to your question, the answer is you cannot even enter the house. Even though you have contract rights and you purchased that house, you have ownership rights, but you do not have possession rights. So technically, you're not even allowed to enter the house. So you could technically be arrested for breaking an entry into a house that you own because you don't have possession rights yet.
What if you think, though, there's water's been left on? Or
You can
there's
preserve a
safety-
house.
Yeah, you can preserve it. I guess you
see.
had entry, you can preserve it. Yeah.
Right.
So in the
Is a
case-
property,
Say again.
I was going to say, is a property eviction where you actually put the property out of the house? That sounds like what a property eviction is.
It
when
does
you see
sound that way, but in
outside of
the
road.
end,
But
they
that's
have a
not
right to claim it. And then after that, then you can dispose of it. The eviction is your,
Right.
it transfers to you at the conclusion of the eviction. You don't have to actually set it outside.
Right. There's 2 types, right? There's a regular eviction where there's people in the house. You evict the people. Then there's a personal
and
property
their
eviction.
property, right?
Yeah, and their
And that's-
property. But then separate from that is just a property eviction, which is a little bit different because you've already conveyed to the court that the house is vacant of any occupants. It's just that you need to get rights to the possessions of that house so that you can go and clean it out, trash it out. You could even sell it if you want to. And so there's been cases before, Miss Coach Purse over there in
Oh, yeah.
Woodbridge who had some nice Dooney Burks and Coaches and Gucci's that she actually gave us possession. We had to evict her, and then we got possession of all the contents in the house. And she was shopping on Home Shopping Network and some of those things. And she was having a couple packages shipped to her house every day. And so that's the reason why she got foreclosed on. But we got a house that was loaded with just great stuff. And so we actually, once we got possession of the house, we actually had an auctioneer come in and auction off all the contents, and there was some pretty nice stuff.
Tell you though,
It's almost like one of those
like,
storage war things, right?
It's like that, but she was there. That lady was there and knew about it, and took just what she wanted. She stored all her art in the neighbor's house across the way, and then she just walked out the door.
Wow.
Dropped the mic, called it a day.
So the walk-in closet was loaded with brand new purses. Like I said earlier, it was Dooney Burke, it was Coach, it was Gucci, it was Fendi, and these were brand new purses. And the walk-in closet was.
I didn't even know you knew the names of those.
Oh
yeah, you seem very knowledgeable about.
I just don't know the
purse
top of the
types.
line purses. I'm not familiar with that. And so I thought about bringing Angel home a couple, but I said, no, this is bad juju when you take something out of a house, especially when we own it, man. So we've never done that. I will never do that. I guess a couple times we did. I got a slot machine out of one of the houses, but this was a bank-owned REO house that we had listed that the house was vacant except for a slot machine in the basement. I still got that, so I got to admit to that. Don't get me in trouble. But the only other time that I remember that we've actually got something out of a house was about 15 years ago. And we got some, there was a house that was loaded with baseball cards.
Oh,
yeah. Baseball cards, football cards, hockey cards, right?
Well, the lady left them for us.
Yeah, the lady left them for us because we bought the house from her as a pre-foreclosure. Was that the same lady that was selling jewelry too, that we bought jewelry from? Yeah, we bought jewelry from her for Christmas for Sam, for his wife at the time, one of my girlfriends. And so bought jewelry from her because she was making customized jewelry during the holidays. And so she actually made a pretty cool jewelry set. But in the basement as she left it was full of baseball cards, basketball cards. And one of my buddies, his name is Seth, and I won't mention his last name. We gave him all these cards, and he was supposed to inventory the cards and get them back.
Oh, he's like, oh, Sam, you can trust Seth. He's mine since I was a child.
That's right. I've known Seth for 20, 25 plus years, and he'll get a kick out of that because he listens to this podcast. Well, we purchased this house about 18 years ago. Now, let me tell you guys something. We have not yet seen those cards.
No, he said he was going to sort through them and find us the valuable ones.
That's right.
He was going to help us.
Yeah, that's right. And he was going to catalog them. He was going to catalog them on
yeah.
his spreadsheet or an Access database. I'm going to catalog them for you guys and get them back to you. That's 18 years later, however many years.
Well, he kept his promise. He identified the valuable ones. He didn't say, though, that he was going to sell them and keep the money. That was the next step. Yeah.
So anyway, to get back to your comment, Sandra, it's bad juju to take anything out of these houses. We just let them go.
Except for the slot machine.
And the shoes that you got, Sandra.
And the boots that I got. You didn't tell me about the bad juju. I got some shoes. I got some boots out of a house. They're nice boots. Some cowboy boots.
If you start limping, you'll know why.
I haven't worn them yet. So maybe that's why.
I don't see what the problem is. If you get possession of the house and possession of the items, why not, do something with them? I mean, if that's like a bonus. Obviously if somebody's possessions, you get them back to them, but if they're gone and you foreclose and whatever, I would think that's like free stuff.
You think that's good luck? Sort of the opposite.
Well, I don't know I'm not really a luck person. I sort of go with the, I don't know.
Why don't you try it out the next time?
Well,
first
we do have to caveat it. Most of the houses that we get loaded with stuff, it's absolute junk.
Yes.
We get some guns. We've had some guns.
You also had the voodoo doll, that voodoo thing that was sitting out back.
Oh yeah.
Is that Rafiki?
Rafiki.
Yeah. That was Rafiki.
Now that's bad juju. What do you do with that to avoid getting cursed? I mean, it was literally, for the listeners, this is around the time I first knew you guys. You showed me a picture of it. It had like like black hair and some wood form, and it literally looked like something you made of your enemy, and then you would light it on fire to create a voodoo curse. Like, so what did you do with that? Did you throw it out?
We'll leave it to the cleanup guys.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Hey, so they get the curse.
Hey, look,
they get the mummies, guys. See, that's smart right there.
Oh yeah, there's some pretty good stories of things left behind.
That big peacock, remember? That was great.
A nice peacock.
It reminded me of my mother's house back in the 70s, where she had those peacocks and the plastic beads, those little curtains. So I got a peacock to go with it. I may put it behind me the next time. So we'll see.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Contractor, he took the last handgun. He can't be mentioned by name, but
yeah. Well, the other thing that we do,
federal officer's handgun too.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that we do though is we have a list of people that if we know their house is loaded, we'll have them go through there, and once we have possession of the house, of course, we will have these people go through there and take some things out of there because my one friend does flea market sales. So he'll go to the flea market and sell stuff. And so he'll donate the money to charity. And so that's not so bad. But he likes like lawnmowers and rakes and shovels and tools and those kinds of things because he says those things sell pretty well. And then he donates the money to charity. So that's not bad.
Well, it's recycling in the modern era. It's good to recycle. Even say you sell a hedge trimmer for $2. That goes to charity, and then somebody doesn't have to buy another hedge trimmer and destroy the environment. I don't know why I thought hedge trimmer, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes they leave the head trimmers there too.
Oh yeah, the head trimmers.
Very good side business to start up too.
So, well, I'm sure that when you're trying to make sure a property is not going to burn down or whatever the case is, I think you're probably in pretty good issue because, and talking about that, isn't a lot of these or a good number of these properties, well, some, I guess you get there like pristine, like people cleaned up and locked up and just seem like really nice people. I mean, not that because it's messy, they're bad people, but like they took pride in their property and they didn't want to leave it a mess. And then you get some that are in the other end of the spectrum that are absolutely trashed.
Yeah. They get the end of their road and they just leave it all.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I would do. Yeah, personally.
Well, I think our record house for the number of dumpsters, I think was what, Sam, 6, 8?
Oh, no, the one in Reston.
Oh,
that one that I showed you with the kitchen, that had a lot of. We had to take it out in trucks because we couldn't leave a dumpster there except for the really small ones, and we had like 15 or 20 dump trucks.
Oh wow!
And empty that house. That was unbelievable.
Oh yeah, that brings back memories. Because the house that Sam is referring to, we call the Circle of Life house. Right. So this particular house was beyond loaded. It was the nastiest house we've ever seen because they didn't pay the water bill and they didn't pay the sewer bill for like a year and a half. And so
you don't pay the sewer bill, Charlie. What do you do with your waste?
That's right. And so what they were doing was they were buying. There you go. There it is. There's the house, everybody. And so
that's the kitchen killed the lady.
Yeah, that's the kitchen.
This is the one I described as the beaten up Addams family. Actually makes the Addams family house look nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
she ate eggplant parmesan until she died.
Yeah, well, the trash bags proved it because what they would do is they would drink out of water jugs that they bought, but then they would actually go to the bathroom in trash bags. And so the house was loaded with furniture. There was leaks everywhere. There was mold everywhere. There were all these trash bags of excrement all throughout the house, right? And so then what happened is the next question is, but don't you have pests, P-E-S-T-S, pests in the house? Well, the answer is yes. And so this is where we come up with the actual true residential circle of life. So the way the circle of life works is that the house was loaded with bed bugs, right? At one time, I'm going to say. The house also had roaches at one time, I'm going to say.
They had roaches when we
It had roaches when we were there?
That was
Okay.
all up the walls, the roaches.
Okay. So what happens is,
Crazy.
since it was infested with bed bugs, and mind you, this is an interior townhouse. Okay. So
In
I
a
can't
nice
imagine.
golf course community in Reston.
Right. I can't imagine what the neighbors thought. Okay, for starters. So what happens is the circle of life goes like this. The roaches eat the bed bugs. The rats eat the roaches. And we had some pretty fat, healthy rats. But can you guys guess?
They died in the walls when we killed them, and it stunk out the whole house.
Right. And then can you guys guess what kills the rats?
Cats?
Nope. We had a couple friends in the attic, and they're called black
Big
snakes.
Big
Black snakes. And they were very healthy. So that's the residential circle of
killed
life.
the snakes.
Bed bugs, roaches, rats, and big black snakes.
I think we need to put an explicit advisory on this episode, not for curse words, but for bad imagery. It's man.
Oh yeah.
But
So that lady called us, Ed. She called us, or it wasn't a lady, the gentleman who owned the house after his wife died. She died in the evening. He called us. Was it that evening he died?
Yeah.
He called us. Charlie had been talking to him for years, and she wanted to stay there. She stayed until she died. She died from so I'll get to that. So we have set up a meeting in the morning, 10 a.m. at the Starbucks in Reston to go meet him. He shows up with his daughter as if his wife hadn't just died the night before, and he says, "I'm ready to sell it. I'm ready to sell it." And then we're sitting there really somber, being respectful of the situation, not asking a lot of questions. And he says, after he signs the contract to sell it to us, he says, "Do you know what? Do you know what killed her?" Just straight as that. And I didn't want to say anything. I just wanted to run because I had the signed contract. We were all set to go. It was a great value. I didn't want to know. Then he hit us with it. He said it was the eggplant parmesan. I can keep a pretty deadpan straight face, and I was through that. And
that was a rough one. I couldn't.
And he went on to tell us that she just wouldn't stop eating eggplant parmesan.
Right. He was serious. I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, she'd get these big trays of it in that kitchen I showed you.
Yeah.
Do up that eggplant parmesan until it's done.
Yep.
I don't understand how it killed her.
Yeah, well.
Explain
Well,
that.
I mean,
It's vegetable
he said it was that, and that is not a joke. And
that was it.
Yeah, well, but we then found out why he was ready to sell it that day. Because when the ambulance showed up to the house was in such bad condition, and it was such a hoarder house that the house was unlivable, and the fire department would not let him. They condemned it, and they wouldn't let him go back
that day. And that was the first time we ever had a condemned house too.
Yeah, that day.
So you knew it was pretty bad, that one, when you were buying it, because it wasn't a foreclosure. It was
no, actually, no, it was
it
was a pre-foreclosure.
Uh-huh.
I actually talked to I actually talked to her like 3 or 4 times because
we met her over at the hotel.
Yeah. No, we talked to her a bunch of times because I was over there because they would come into foreclosure. They would pay it current. Another 6 months went by. They would go back into foreclosure. They'd pay it current. And so I'd always show up with a brochure, and I would always knock on the door. And so, but I do this to so many houses, I don't remember them all, but she'd open the door. I mean, I saw him inside the house. So I kind of knew what condition it was in. I just hadn't been through the house. Thank God she didn't invite me in. I mean, that was terrible. But I did know what kind of condition the house was in. So it wasn't a surprise to us. The surprising thing was the fact that the fire department condemned it. And so, but we got it at such a value point that, I mean, we did make pretty good money on it, but hell, I think.
So what did it cost? What was the delta for all the trash and the walls with animals? Like what did that end up costing?
That was at least $100,000 renovation.
No, I was going to say more. I was going to say like 140, 130,
like
140.
That. But we made 6 figures on that house.
Yeah. So I think it was like, let's say it was like 140. We picked up the house for, I don't know, 180. We're in at 320, and then we sold it for, I don't know, 450, something like that. I mean, the numbers.
It was not normal.
I mean, the numbers made sense, but I mean, like I said, we learned the circle of life, real estate, residential circle of life.
Well, and that shows again, because we're hopefully trying to be somewhat educational here and not shock jocks. I feel like we're Howard Stern today, but that's the sort of thing. If you buy at foreclosure without, trying to observe the property or see if it's occupied or whatever, it can be quite a swing in the cost. I'm trying. That's why I was curious about that. Like, say the house had been in bad condition, had to be renovated, but it wasn't filled with trash bags of all the stuff you mentioned and stuff in the walls. Like, how much extra did that extra badness cost? Was it another $10,000?
No, that was probably 40 grand extra because we had to get rid of the drywall. We had to strip it all the way down to the framing. We had to get it all new permits because we had to have permits in order to lift the condemnation, and we had to reconnect the water. It wasn't just off; it was broken. I mean, it was really a lot.
And then we had the specialty windows. Don't you remember the specialized windows we had to buy?
Windows, yeah, it
wasn't just your normal windows.
Yeah, rest and home, and so we got these cool windows, but they took a long time and cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, that's interesting. So the difference was maybe if it was just a beat up house that you got through foreclosure, maybe 60,000 in renovations, but instead it was more like 100 plus because of that. So it just goes to show some of the risks that people are taking in buying these things out of foreclosure is you got to be ready. And some of your competitors, Charlie, right? They're cutting the margins so close, something like that would kill them. That $40,000 would wreck them.
Yeah, that would definitely hurt them.
Yeah.
And like I said, even the example we used maybe a couple podcasts ago, these guys are buying it. We're all buying it sight unseen for the most part, and so they have no idea what that renovation is going to be like. And so they just think it's going to be the cheapest renovation in the world. And so they always err on the side of a cheaper renovation to give them a higher buy price. And they do what we call pencil math. They either, lower the renovation costs or increase the after repair value. And a lot of times those numbers don't make any sense. And they bid the profit margin out of them at the auction, especially what's going on nowadays.
Is there anything you could have done, you think, to get a handle on, that type of renovation? I mean, there's no way you would have known that there were snakes in the attic, like they had said, but.
Oh, well, this particular house.
Drive by, break in, something that
Ed
wouldn't want to hear.
Keys, if it's vacant,
don't
right?
Break in.
Okay, don't break in.
The keys, right? It all comes down to the keys.
Keys.
If the house is vacant and it's been updated, it's been taken care of by a property preservation company and they've rekeyed it, we got the keys.
Mm.
So.
The key or to rekey?
No, once it's been rekeyed. Yeah, right. To key, right? To key or
not to key.
This is Basement Tales swag. How much are we selling these for? Yeah. Are we marketing these? I got this fancy graphic on the back of my shirt, which because I'm sitting in a wheelchair, no one will ever see because I have a back of my wheelchair.
I'm gonna turn mine to the front. How about that?
I might have to do that.
It has a BT on it.
I love it. I'm in.